Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Again, if you guys remember me from yesterday, if you were part of story time, my name is Sherry Mubasher. We're going to be doing a little mosaic craft today. If you guys want to grab your little bag, it'll say week 2, and it'll have today's date. There we go. And it'll have a whole bunch of strips of colored paper, construction paper, and you should have 4 white construction papers. So if everybody wants to get that out. Next, let's talk about the other supplies that we're gonna need. We're gonna need a pair of scissors, some glue sticks. If you don't have glue sticks, the liquid glue works just fine. It's just going to take a little bit longer to dry. A pencil, mechanical, regular pencil. And lastly, a ruler. So I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to gather all those supplies if you haven't already, and I'm going to work on opening my packet. All right. Before starting, I would suggest to be like on a little ledge because we're going to be cutting up little tiny squares and we're going to be kind of grabbing them, and it's really hard to grab them off the table. It's easier to kind of slide them into your hand. And just to show you really quick, these are what I did a couple of days ago, but I redid some. I did this with my 5-year-old daughter, Lana. So here's just kind of some examples of what we're going to be doing. That's a little heart. And then this one, it's supposed to be a masjid or a mosque. All right, so everybody has all their supplies. Let's go ahead and start. First, grab one of your white sheets of construction paper. Awesome. Now we're going to do a little heart. Actually, I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do. This is a finished little paper right here. So we're going to work on a heart. So first, grab your pencil. Make sure you clicked it a couple of times if you have your mechanical pencil. And I want you to draw a heart. And try to draw it pretty big so that you can fit a lot of squares on there. So something like this, draw it very lightly. Don't press down too hard. All right. So next, it's up to you what color you want to use. I am going to use pink or purple. So go ahead and grab the color that you want. And I would gather about maybe 2 or 3 strips and make sure they're all kind of the same length and they're pretty straight. Now I want you to grab your scissors. Whoops, let's move this out of the way. I want you to grab your scissors, and you can use your ruler for the first couple of times that you're about to cut your strips of paper, but we're wanting to cut it about 1/2 inch. So if you look at your ruler here, this is the full inch, and you want to cut them in about 1/2 inch little squares. So if you want to put your ruler down and kind of make sure that you're cutting them that size, you can, or you can just eyeball it and make sure that you're cutting little squares. And if they turn out into little rectangles, that's totally fine. So just line everything up. I feel like I have more stability if I put my scissors on the table, and I'm just gonna start cutting little squares. And make sure you don't nick yourself. Just cut a couple of, there we go. And like I said, if you're unsure how to do it, you can just line it up with the ruler and say, that's about 1/2 inch, and just keep going. So like I said, use those scissors. If you want to cut up in the air, you know, you're not going to get that precision. If you have them on the table, that's a little bit better. And in this example, I did 3 strips of the pink. And I'm almost done. Those ones at the end ended up as rectangles, but that's okay. So I'm going to do an example both with the glue stick and the liquid glue. I find that the glue stick is much easier, but it dries really quickly. So whenever you're smudging it on your paper, just do little areas at a time. And then with the liquid glue, I would just do little dots. And this one's easier if you tend to mess up a little bit, which I tend to do. These are nice. The liquid glue is nicer because you can move the little strips of paper around a little bit. With the glue stick you can, but you got to do it pretty fast. So don't forget to twist up. Don't twist up all the way, and keep the lid handy. So first, I'm gonna want to start on the outside of my heart. Right there. So I'm just gonna do like a little arch. And I grabbed this purple glue so that you guys could see, but it's gonna dry clear.
Hey, Sherry?
Yeah?
Hey, Assalamualaikum, it's Anjum. Sorry, we kind of got out late, so we just had to draw a heart on our picture.
Yeah.
And then we cut the pink, squares and just 3 pink strips and just an even spacing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, perfect. Okay, here you go. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so I'm gonna redo this glue right here because it's gonna dry pretty quickly.
Is it only on the outside of the heart?
Yeah, just on the outer. You can pick whichever side you want to start on. It doesn't matter. As long as you kind of move in one direction. So if you want to move down and then you want to move over. So you can pick wherever. And I'm gonna put these on pretty quickly because I'm using the glue stick. So like it'll turn out like this. So you want to leave a little bit of spacing with mosaic art between the little squares, and if they overlap, that's totally fine too. And I'm trying to cover up my pencil mark so that you can't see it. So now let's move. You can either move down this row over here, or you can move over here, and then just start making your way down until you create the heart. So we're gonna keep going. Let me do a couple of in case anybody has the liquid glue. So what I would do is I would do little dots. Let's see. Oh, I didn't open it all the way. Okay, there we go. I would do little dots like this, and then glue the little strips of paper, little squares on top of the dots. And with the liquid glue, like I said, you can take your time because it doesn't dry as quickly. And then for those of you who just popped in, I did mention it's easier to have like a table ledge so you can kind of just like scoop them up. It's kind of hard to just like pick them up from where they are. All right, so I'm gonna show you my hearts over here. Let's see, I missed a little glue spot. Okay. So this is what it would look like. And then just keep moving down. If there's really big gaps, I'll show you how to fix those, but just try to make it as close as you can to the little squares that you already have. And then try to move in one direction. So you want to go down. I prefer the glue stick. That way I can show you exactly where I'm gluing next. So I'm gonna start moving down this way. And I like holding like a handful of them and then just grabbing as I'm going. It's a little bit quicker. Oops, there we go. And I'm just gonna show you right here. You see how I have like these gaps? That's totally fine. We can fill them in later with like some scrap papers. So I'm gonna be doing the next little row like this. All right, that's what it looks like so far. So keep moving down. I'm just going to show you how to fill in these little gaps if you want them filled. If not, you can just keep moving down. But what I would do is I would kind of eyeball it. Like this one, it kind of looks like a little triangle might fit in there. So what I can do is grab one of my little squares and cut like the corner like this, like right there. And then use my glue stick. And I can fill in that little gap. And it can go on top, but you can't notice it as much that the gap is really there. And then right here, I can do like a tiny rectangle if I wanted to, or I can try to slide these up if my glue stick hasn't dried everything completely. Let's see. Oh. Let's see. I'll probably put a rectangle in there. Anyway, let's keep moving down. So while you're doing this, start thinking of someone that you may want to gift this to. Maybe your parents, maybe you can mail it to your teacher because she's been helping you so much. Mother's Day is coming up. Let's see. That's how it's looking. I'm going to keep going. And if anyone's finished ahead of time, oh, there you go. That's a perfect little heart. And if anyone's finished ahead of time making their entire heart, you can start cutting different strips of color that you know you'll want to do for the next, because we're going to be doing 4 different designs. And see right here, it's kind of getting difficult on the curve. So I just cut out 2 triangles to try to smooth that curve a little bit. And I'll probably change this one because I would want it to be a triangle too. And then you can fill this one in with the triangle by cutting a little bit. You can fill this one in with a little triangle in here. So try to start filling in those gaps by cutting these little squares diagonally. You can cut them from side to side. Oops. So I'm going to cut a little bit more. And I like to have like a little scrap section when I cut up my my squares because I might need them. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want to fill that in. That is another one. Yep. And just to show you in my previous design, you don't have to stop where I stopped. You can keep going. Like I decided to do all of this purple. You can decide to do all of the squares inside a totally different color if you want to do it on another sheet of paper. If you want to do the whole back part a different color, you can do that too. And then I just wrote on top if you wanted to write like a little note to someone. I love you so much. Yeah. So I'm going to finish filling in these little gaps. Like in this spot, I think I'm gonna fill it in with a little rectangle right there. I think that would be perfect. Oops, I didn't. There we go. And I kind of eyeball my scraps and I'm like, which one can I fit in that little spot? I'm just gonna glance, how's everyone doing? All right, you guys, looks like everyone's doing really good. So here in like a minute, we're gonna move on to the next one, but no rush, take your time. I'm just gonna show you another design. And like I said, if you're ahead, go ahead and cut those strips now. Let's see. And during this, your fingers will get really sticky. So if you want to take some time to go to the bathroom and wash your hands real quick, do it. All right, you guys, this is my heart. I'm pretty happy with it.
Ooh, ask her.
Oh, does anybody have a question?
Yeah, she does. I asked a question.
Can after we're done like outlining it with pink, can we do different colors in
Of
it?
course, yeah, like you can do whatever color that you want. So if you want to fill that in later, like see I did this, I kind of went around, you could do something totally different. You can make all of the little different colors. I actually chose this craft because it was really open-ended. You can do like whatever you want. You can do each little square a different color. You know, you can decide to do the background or not. You don't even have to do this shape if you want. This is just something that I picked that I thought would be fun if you wanted to give to a loved one right now. But I think everyone looks like they're pretty much wrapping up. If you want to write something on top, you can. But we're going to move on to the next one, you guys. So the next one, we're not going to be using this pink color. And if you want to keep using pink, that's cool too. I'm going to slide this away. And next, I thought it would be really fun to do a mosque. So this is what I came up with. And I actually used the Muslim Space logo for my inspiration. And if you don't remember what it looks like, you can look at your little sticker sheet like this. There we go. So go ahead and grab a white piece of paper and start drawing the image that's on the screen. And if you didn't finish your heart, that's okay. You can move on to this one if you want. You can finish your heart. So I'm gonna start drawing. So remember when you're drawing, draw very light lines so you can't see it. So see, oh, I'm gonna draw a little bit more. So I pretty much drew, I don't know if you can see it really. I drew some really light lines. I drew the floor and I did the 2 columns and I did just little circles to remind me that I want to have something big right here. And then you're going to draw another 2 lines going up and down and then like a little point where they meet. And if we want to put that image back up so that they can see it, or you can use your sticker too. And then don't forget that little door in the middle. And if you drew it a little bit crooked, don't worry, like you can always change, like I drew mine a little bit crooked right now. You can always change like how your little tiles, your little construction paper squares lay. All right, so go ahead and start thinking about what color you want to use. Just to kind of go with the example, I'm going to be cutting purple strips. And go ahead and grab like 2 or 3 strips. I think 3 should be more than plenty for your mosque. And make sure they line up pretty well. And again, you can use the ruler as your guide to do 1/2 inch, or you can just eyeball it, make sure that they're little squares.
Can you hold up your mouse that's already
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have a tree. Okay.
Yeah, I just added extra things just to make it look, but you guys can do, you know, whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever. You can do some
I'm
flowers,
Okay.
gonna do.
but that's just whatever I end up doing. I thought it looked cute. I can kind of, I wonder if I can prop it up while I'm. So I'm almost done cutting my purple strips. Again, you choose whatever color you want. All right. So I'm done cutting my little strips, but this is what I ended up drawing. I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's what I did. So when I started doing it, I started on the floor, and I'll show you with my glue stick. Oops. So I started here, and then I just did a line of tiles. And like, let's say you messed up like this. If you're using the glue stick or your glue, you can always fix it by just scooting it a little bit down. You can scoot things over if you want. So my line is down, it's not straight, so I can fix a couple, I can move them around before the glue dries. And center it a bit. There, this one's a little bit high, I maybe want to move it down. And once it's dry, it's kind of hard to move, but there we go, that looks better. Now I'm gonna work on the columns. Now the columns and the side of the mosque, they're really close together. So I'm going to do my strip starting on the edge of this square. Even though my line is kind of over here, I found that when I did this, when I was doing this, there was like, when I first started doing it, they were really close together. So you see on this one, and I fixed it on this side. So make sure you kind of have like a finger width apart. So start on this outer square and then go up. And somehow for me, one side ended up being a little bit taller than the other one. Like this one's, sorry, this one's a little bit taller. So I'm just gonna cut like a little strip there. So it can kind of be the same size. So now I think I'm going to move on to the actual walls and roof, this part. And then this is actually the hardest part, the little circles. So we're just going to do this. And so when you're starting your squares, start from the bottom and then move your way up. Oh, and don't forget that there's a little door there that you drew. So start going around the door. If you want it a different color, if you want it to be purple, then it won't show up as well. So I would choose a different color. And if there's any older siblings that are listening in and you want to do the craft, and this seems a little bit simple for you, you can also cut the squares down into smaller pieces. That would give it a little bit of more difficulty. And as you're starting to do this more and more, kind of be selective with the squares that you're using. So if you see like you have a little space left, look around and see if you have like a smaller square that's a little bit thinner, or if you have a big space left, like kind of check your pile and see, oh, I got a bigger one here, that'd be perfect right there. And I'm going to show you something. So see here, my line is going up and this is kind of getting in the way. I can cut this little corner off this square to kind of make it fit. Now, since I cut up that little square right there, it'll look more like a roof. And then you're starting to see a shape. You can fit a little triangle there. And I left some space for my door, so I'll be going around it. So once you get to this spot, start moving to the other side of the door and start going up. I've got a couple more squares till I reach the top. So this is what I have so far. So when I cut the top of this square, I ended up using this little scrap piece and putting it here and it fit perfectly. And you see I still...
Okay, so what do we do?
What part are you confused on? Did somebody have a question?
What are the other spaces for the mosque? The one in between the mosque. Why is one is the video gonna be recorded?
Yes, this video is going to be recorded and it's going to be uploaded on YouTube. So if you feel like I'm going a little bit fast, you can go ahead, like after I finish this video, you can go ahead, hop on YouTube and you can rewind and play it over again in case you miss some of the instructions. So that's what it should look like. And right now I'm still right here. So I would be wanting to fill in this little spot later with tiny rectangles. And then I'm going to start picking out my door color in my mind. But we're gonna do these little minarets or on the top. They're gonna be quite difficult. Here we go. So I'm gonna fill in these little spaces. So just use one of the squares that you have, and I'm gonna cut my square in half. I think that'll fit perfectly there. Yep. So I closed that little gap right there. And then I'm gonna start working on the top. So what I did is I did 2 squares and then I put a square on top of that one. They're sticking to my fingers. But it kind of helps whenever your fingers are sticky and you just grab one. All right, so that's what I did to start off with. And then I filled in these little spaces on the sides with triangles. So do 2 squares and then stack one on top, 2 squares, stack one on top, and then cut a square diagonally so you can, or 2 squares actually, so you can have 4 pieces and put the triangles on the sides. So I'm doing the 2 squares and one on top. And I've got my 2 squares diagonally, and I'm going to add them to these sides. And that's how it turned out. Now I think with my other one, I ended up not liking these little tails, but I think they look cute. But I ended up cutting mine off, I believe. Yeah, I ended up cutting the little sides of the squares, but you don't have to, you can leave it like that. So next, let's start working on this little door. And I actually ended up cutting my squares really tiny. I think I cut them in halves and then I just stacked them on top, maybe even fourths. So I think I'm gonna choose the same color again. I'm gonna choose that dark blue. And for this one, you don't have to worry about doing 2, just one little strip will be just fine. So I think what I ended up doing for the door, and you can just put like you can just cut a rectangle, honestly, like that, and just stick it in the front if you want. Like that would be, like you could do something like this, but I like doing the little squares. So I'm just gonna get like a small strip like this and cut it in half. So now I have 2 pieces of the rectangle, and I'm gonna stack them on top of each other. And I'm just gonna cut a couple of times. So now I have tiny little blue squares. And there we go, my door. Now, if I wanted to, I can come in and like fill in some of these holes that I have here. But I think it looks pretty good. And we're gonna keep moving on from here, but if later after the video you wanna add some, you know, like a tree or a sun or a couple flowers or some grass or maybe a blue sky and fill up the whole thing, you totally can. And you can give it to someone. You can even put Eid Mubarak and give it to someone you love on Eid. All
I
right.
think Aya has a question.
Oh. Yes, what's your question?
I want to show you it.
I love it. Let me see that door. Oh, and did you put a doorknob on your door?
Yeah.
I love it. And you did the windows. That's great. See how we all have different ideas in our mind and we can create something totally different. It doesn't have to look like mine. It can look like anything you want. All right, you guys, so we're gonna move on. I'm gonna hold this just one last time in case you wanted to do the tree, if you wanted to do the sun. Next, we're gonna move on. Let me put these to the side. Now this one, it took me a long time, so please, we're not gonna do all of this. I wanted to show you something that could be done on a full page. Now this is gonna take a lot of time, but I'm just gonna do the moon right now. And then if you guys, you know, have some extra time that you wanna put forth, like finishing this all out. This star, I will say, was very difficult, but we're just gonna do the moon this time. And then if you wanna do a background, then you can. So let's go ahead and get rid of our purples. And just a pro tip here, if your parents have like a little bowl that has a divider, it's super helpful if you're wanting to work on this project a little later. You can just grab. That way you don't have to cut strips again and they're not all over the place. By the end of this, there will be a lot of squares all over the floor, but that's okay. All right, so grab your third white sheet. And I'm gonna grab yellow for the moon. You can make your moon whichever color that you want. And again, we're gonna get our 3 strips. We're gonna line them up. Oops, scoot this over. Line them up, cut them in 1/2 inch or eyeball them to be squares. And as you've been seeing, we've been having a lot of leftover squares. So if you don't feel like cutting this whole thing and want to do like 3/4 of it, you can. And there's a moon that you can start drawing. And you see that background? You can make the background green, you can make it black. And another little cool idea, if you want to display your artwork, you can get an old picture frame that no one's using. And you can put it on there. You can put it on your wall in your room. All right, so I'm done cutting my little squares, my yellow squares. Now grab your pencil again and look at the image on the screen and just draw a crescent moon. Now you want to make it a little bit thick so that you can fit maybe at least 2 to 3 squares on there. And if you mess up on drawing your moon, just flip your paper over to the other side. That happened to me with this one. You can see my moon on the back that I didn't draw so well. All right. So now we want to move in the same direction. You can start in the middle, go up, and then go back down. So I like to start on the upper top, like that, and I drew my moon, and just start gluing my little squares and moving downward. And also, sometimes I'm not a super patient person. So I'm gonna show you, like I did this one earlier and I was like, you know what? I just want it to be different colors and I didn't leave a whole bunch of gaps. I just kind of stacked them all over the place and that was super fun too. I just kind of like threw it on there like confetti and just pressed it and it turned out like that. And I think that looks pretty cool. So if you're not patient on putting every single little square next to each other and not on top of each other, you don't have to do that. So as you're doing your moon, you're gonna start noticing that you're gonna have gaps on some edges. And that's where we cut up our squares and we fill those gaps in. The reason why I like mosaic art so much is because I tend to mess up like quite a bit, but it's very forgiving. You can just cut little strips and fill in the gaps. So I'm gonna start cutting a few of my squares in half. So you see how my moon, like I'm having this little gap because it starts turning and it's making different. So I'm just gonna fill in these little gaps with my rectangles. There we go. So that little spot that you saw that was missing, you just put some strips on there. And then I'm gonna fill this in probably with a triangle, and I'm gonna cut a triangle here too, so it can look a little bit pointy. So that's how I did it. I just did this little triangle right here, and I can scoot it. Remember when before it dries, you can just scoot it. And then I did a pointy triangle here so I can give the moon better shape. And now I just need the top. And do the same exact thing. Do a little triangle on the top. And then you're probably gonna have some rectangles here to fill in these gaps. And then you should be pretty much done. I already need these rectangles. And I need a little triangle. All right, so here's my finished product of the moon. And I can, if I wanted to, I can still fill in some of these holes again. And let me show you the finished product. Now this one took me a long time, and you can spend a little extra time on your own to do this one. I do want to kind of zoom in on this star. So when I did this star, I just kind of cut some triangles, and I didn't cut the squares in half. I just grabbed this little strip of paper and I kind of angled my scissors like 45 degrees. And I kind of went like this, back, I don't know if you can see it, back and forth. And the triangles ended up looking more like this. And then I stuck them on the edges of the star. on these little points. And then everything else I filled in with squares, and if there was any gaps, I filled them in with other things. And the background is just filling in with all the squares, and I tried to have them all facing the same way. All right, you guys, and the last sheet of paper, you guys should have one more. And I'm gonna clean up my station. Okay. You guys should have one more blank piece of paper left. Now this one, oh man, look at some of those. They look fantastic. So for the last one, oh wow, yeah, let's see some. Oh man, look at that. Look at that masjid. Oh wow! I like the way you did that star. That looks way, way easier. Oh man. Yeah, I need to do that star. I like the way it kind of like, ooh. All right, guys, so this last piece of paper, I kind of want you to try to think of something in your mind, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be mine. I ended up doing a rainbow, and I didn't have any white pieces of paper, so I ended up just doing some triangles. Now you don't have to do the rainbow. I just thought all the colors, it would be fun to do. But after this Zoom session, I want you guys to do something that's completely different. I know I gave you 3 things. We did the heart, we did the mosque, and we did the crescent moon. I want you to do something that's not one of those 3. Something that you thought of that's totally different. And you don't have to fill up the whole space. Maybe you just want to do like a little flower, something that you want to do though, and make it your own. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions before we end? Or does anybody want to showcase their artwork? And I can hold up each one just so that you guys remember. So. Wow. Look at that. I like the multicolored mosque. I love it. Oh, look at that, you guys. That's amazing. Great. So I'm just going to go over what we did. The heart. Oh, we didn't do it in that order. The mosque, the crescent moon, and then the last paper, whatever you want to do with the other colors. Well, don't forget, we still have a few more sessions for the Ramadan story time and the Ramadan arts and crafts. So we'll have those every weekend at 11 a.m. until Ramadan ends. And then we'll post this video on YouTube. So if you felt like it was a little bit rushed or you wanted to rewind, yeah, please go on YouTube, look at that video, and that way you can go at your own pace. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining and thank you for being patient with me. Assalamu alaikum.